Hi everybody, welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I are here on a fairly cool, rainy day. Wintry day is what it is. Pete's getting over shingles, so it's a timely thing to maybe remind you that you should get the new shingles vaccine. Every time I say vaccine, I get all sorts of messages from people saying, don't have those things. You know, I'm 84 and I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but I've never had a vaccine and I've never been ill for one single day. I'm sure. I don't know how people can just dismiss the obvious benefit and advantage of vaccination. I thought it kind of been proven over the centuries, but not to everybody, clearly. One Nation members of this Parliament, 48th Parliament, they stand up and they turn their backs on the welcome to country. Bravo. Bravo. Tune in Friday morning, 9 o'clock, jeremycordeaux.com. I'll have a lot more to say about that then. Live streaming around the dining room table. Les Ellicus, Gary will be there. Professor, this is from memory, Professor Plimer. I haven't got everybody locked in yet. Dr. John Bruni. I want to talk to Jason Morrison. I used to work with Jason when he was the Macquarie correspondent in Canberra, and he worked overseas, and then he came back and worked at 2GB and then ran Channel 7. He's a very interesting character. And hopefully Pauline Hanson as well. Drew Hutton, speaking of politics, I don't know if you know the name, but Drew Hutton was one of the founders of the Greens. Well, he says the party has been taken over by transgender renegades. He was sacked. Well, they kicked him out of the party he started. No room for disagreement, not there. The conservationists have been removed. Left-wing, transgender, radical activists have all the positions of power in that party. Well, that's what he says. And he's in a position to know. But sadly not in a position to get rid of them. A glimmer of hope. Barnaby Joyce. He's interesting. I like talking to Barnaby Joyce. He says it from the heart. No messing around. He's introduced a bill into federal parliament to end this net zero nonsense. A whole lot of carpetbaggers and crooks have got their hands around the throat of Australia to achieve nothing. That's paraphrasing what he said, but pretty close to it. Net zero isn't even vaguely possible, let alone useful or necessary. Yet this idiocy has the full and passionate backing of this Labor government. So good for you, Barnaby. And I understand that Pauline Hanson, I'll try and find out Friday, but I understand that Pauline Hanson will be introducing a similar bill. Why don't you join forces? I'm sure there are people within the Liberal Party and maybe independents, perhaps, I don't know, who would be all for shedding some light on this net zero stupidity. The government wants you to know that even though your Australian passport is the most expensive in the world, yeah, maybe you didn't know that, the most expensive in the world, it's well worth it. Where is the journalist who will ask, why? These people never never cease to amaze me. Pathetic. What has happened? What could possibly happen to make the Australian passport more expensive than any other passport in the world? Yes, they have put up the price even further. Justify it. It all adds to the cost of living, which they say is their major concern. Really? Well, if you're going to talk the talk, why don't you walk the walk? And speaking of travel, just revealed the month of May was the highest on record for new arrivals. The all-time highest month on record, highest ever. I guess they thought no one would notice. Well, we try to be across as many things as we can here in the court of public opinion. Here's something that's also interesting. Some might consider it worrying. Soon, 50% of all new cars sold in Australia will be Chinese. Mostly electric vehicles. There will be at least 20 Chinese car brands in the country by the end of the year, most of which you and I would never have heard of before. The word dumping might come to mind. Generous warranties. 10-year warranties. But how many of these Chinese car companies will there be in the country when or if you make a claim? I've got no way of knowing. Choice is yours. I saw a story on ageism, which I think is worth bringing up, and particularly if you'd like to call us on Friday about it. It gets up my nose, gets my goat, ageism. 30%, according to the survey, 30% of respondents say no, they don't want older workers. Well, that's stupid. And I think it's probably the only prejudice that seems to be tolerated. Ageism. Anti-Semitism too seems to get tolerated. But with regard to people over 60, you know, the most loyal, most hard-working, most experienced, most responsible people are out of consideration for no good reason. I can't see how these people can sit around a table talking about tax and productivity in a few weeks' time without discussing this, without trying to remedy that blatant prejudice against this huge resource that we have, which is the older Australian man and woman. Now, do you believe this? I never thought I would see this in Australia. 3 years ago, we had the cheapest electricity in the world. 3 years of Labor's renewables, and we have here in Adelaide, AGL telling us to only use our electricity between 10 and 12. I take it that's 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. And we'll get a discount. Yeah, get a discount. That there are not riots, demonstrations and journalistic outrage about such a thing is to me amazing. This is third world stuff. We are all being led to Labor's economic slaughterhouse for no reason, which is why Barnaby's private members' bill to scrap net zero along with Pauline Hanson's is so important. What else is around? The Centre for Independent Studies came up with some interesting stuff. Half of the Australian population, half of us, 52%, more than half, are reliant upon the government for their income. Now, I don't think that that is sustainable. When you think about it, you can't tell me that half the population can't or won't work and has to depend on the other. As I've said, socialism is about putting as many people as they possibly can on welfare. That's not the sort of country Australia is about, in my opinion. We're here for the Rising Sun. Lovely sponsors, Jim Elder and the Rising Sun. Now, the Rising Sun is in Bridge Street at Kensington. If you come down or up Kensington Road, you go across Portrush Road if you're a local, the council have very kindly put up a sign on the corner, on the lamppost, saying, the Rising Sun, this way. Grant and Jackie, I don't know how you organised that, but it looks pretty good. Anyway, you get to the Rising Sun, it's not far out of the city, and if you're looking for a romantic lunch or dinner, or you're looking for a venue for a reception, launch a product, a regular club meeting or something like that, you couldn't choose a better spot than the rising sun. Lots of atmosphere, open fires. This time of the year, it's just really good. Really good atmosphere. And Jim Elder, who's heading at breakneck speed into the second big auction of the year. They're on Melbourne Street at North Adelaide. Jim and Helen Elder, their telephone number, 8267-2869. They're inviting people to submit for this, and it's not too late, they haven't printed the catalogue yet. Submit notable paintings, interesting paintings. It could be one that you've put in the closet and not particularly in love with it, but it could be worth a fortune, you don't know. But get a free appraisal from Jim Elder, Fine Art. And don't forget to call us tomorrow, 0491 65 68 60, jeremycordeaux.com. And if you're listening on your computer screen, you can always listen on the radio. Well, you can listen on the mobile phone. The best app, I'm told, is Simple Radio. And if you do that, as I say, on your phone, you will have me in the palm of your hand, as if you don't already. Government will be able to shut down childcare centres if they don't come up to standard. Yes, Prime Minister, that sounds pretty good. But hey, what are the standards? No one's asked you that, so you haven't actually had to explain. Why won't you tell us what the standards are, or don't you know? Cyber CX, don't know if you know the name, but this is the outfit that checks the background of those people who want to work in childcare and oversees the childcare industry generally. Checks and red flags those people who have a history of child abuse. They say, this outfit, they say that 590 people are probably still working with children who shouldn't be. 590. Now, I don't know, it doesn't go on to say whether they're convicted paedophiles or they're just people with a question mark. But 590 people out there who the expert says shouldn't be there. This whole thing is broken, clearly. Think twice about the safety of your children if they're in childcare. Pete, did you see that Paul Keating has had his $1 million tax debt written off?
No.
No, Paul Keating has had $1 million tax debt written off. His 2016 tax debt, I think it was. Wow. Gee. Now, I don't know the background of this, but do we get to hear what really went on with this decision? The tax office is very thorough. Did he owe the money or didn't he? Seems like a lot of money to write off, but he is a former treasurer. But why would the tax office close the file? And what were you saying, Pete, that there was the tax office lost?
Defrauded out of billions of dollars.
You couldn't defraud the tax office.
Yeah. Their system is good enough.
Oh dear. There's some red faces there, I would imagine. Speaking of red faces, we have already given, you would know probably, $800 million towards our purchase of the Virginia-class subs. We have just given, a couple of days ago, another $800 million. 1.6 billion, all up. And hello, the Americans are reviewing the whole deal. No subs delivered, not even on the horizon. And we keep paying? If AUKUS is on hold, surely so too should be the money. What are these idiots doing? We'll talk to John Rooney tomorrow about that. I hope to have him on at 9:30, jeremycordeaux.com. According to Sydney University, if you can walk 7,000 steps a day, now I used to hear that it was 10,000 was the go-to amount of steps. I just don't think I'd have the patience to count them. I don't know. But if you can walk 7,000 steps a day, you will cut your chances of an early death by 50%. Catherine Owens and Melody Ding from the School of Public Health in New South Wales led the research. Now, I hope to have them on, if not tomorrow, next week on the Friday show. Do you remember the government announcement, speaking of health? Do you remember the government announcement? Health Minister Mark Butler told us the biggest health issue facing Australia today is vaping. And the only way people will be able to buy a vape will be at the pharmacy. Well, the pharmacists weren't too keen on the idea, but anyway, it turned out to be rubbish. They are being sold everywhere. Government rhetoric does not match its action. You can buy vapes everywhere. In fact, if you go to Seek, you know, the big online employment company, you will find 2 vaping outlets advertising for sales assistance right now, quite openly. That's enough to make you laugh, isn't it? They must be anything but scared of the government. Please apply, you know, sales assistance to sell the things that the health minister says are banned. Oh, they're banned or they're not banned. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. July 31st, end of the month. Horse's birthday tomorrow, the 1st. Yeah. July 31st. Rare, spotless giraffe. The only known one in the world, was born in Bright's Zoo in Limehouse, Tennessee, on this day in 2023. I wonder if the other giraffes would pick on him. I think so. I think that's the way it I think it works that way, doesn't it? Yvonne Goolagong, Australian tennis player, 7 Grand Slam singles titles, born in New South Wales this day in 1951. Happy birthday, Yvonne. Black Tot Day. Now this has to come with a certain explanation. Black Tot Day, the last day of the officially sanctioned rum ration in the Royal Navy. A tot of rum is a glass or a measure of rum. Black Tot Day, the last one. 1740. A long time between drinks, fellas. K.J. Rowling, English writer and novelist, Harry Potter, born in 1965. God, you're young. I've got ties older than that. Cliff Richard, speaking of being young, I mean he's 90-something, but he's still young. Coming to Australia, by the way. Cliff Richard and the Shadows have their first #1 hit single with Living Doll, biggest British single of 1959. That was the year, this was the day. BC Battle of Alexandria, Mark Antony achieves a minor victory over Octavian, but most of his army subsequently deserts, leaving Octavian's invasion of Egypt. 30 BC. There's a lot of raping and pillaging going on in those days. Ted Cassidy, American actor, born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, died 79, and born this day in 1932. The last Playboy Club in the US closes in Lansing, Michigan, on this day in 1988. Ban the Beatles. 2 Alabama radio hosts, Tommy Charles and Doug Layton of WAKY in Birmingham, asks listeners to send in Beatles albums and merchandise to burn in response to John Lennon's anti-Jesus remark that Christianity will go, and anyway the Beatles were bigger. 1966. We got to go. Thanks so much for being with us. Now we'll talk to you in the morning, 9 o'clock. I hope you'll join us. You just go to jeremycordeaux.com and you'll find the program Around the Dining Room Table, the Court of Public Opinion, and we'll be back with another posting on Facebook on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, and in the same week on the Thursday at 9 o'clock. Have a great evening. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion.